I'd like to say that nothing ever goes wrong, but it would be a lie. So we need some capacity to handle errors when they occur. Luckily, JavaScript has a built-in error handling mechanism that you're most likely very familiar with if you have experience with C# or Java. It uses the try-catch-finally model, and we can throw an exception when some unusual error condition occurs. It's best not to use exceptions for expected normal program behavior. Exceptions are thrown using the throw statement. When you use the throw statement, it can be given an exception object, which is then attached to that exception. When an exception is thrown, execution stops at that point and control is passed up the call stack until the exception is handled or until the top of the call stack is reached. If the exception is caught, then the exception object can be accessed. This is what it looks like to throw an exception. You can see the use of the throw keyword, and the throw statement is given an object, and here I've given it a name property and a message property, but there aren't any rules about the contents of that object. The power of this style of exception handling is that we can throw an error where it occurs and then choose to handle it wherever it makes the most sense for us. Whenever an exception is thrown within a try block, it can be caught with an associated catch block. If the catch block is given an argument, the value of that argument will be set to the exception object that was given to the throw statement. A finally block can also be attached to the try catch block, and it's used to guarantee execution of a set of statements, even in the event of an exception or error. So no matter what else happens, we can be guaranteed that the finally block will always be executed. This is the basic syntax for try catch finally. We can see that within the try block, an exception is being thrown with a name and message property. The catch block has an argument e, which then allows us to access the values of the exception object. And I've also provided a finally block, which will be executed regardless of whatever else happens. Let's try some examples. This is very similar to the syntax we were just looking at. There's a try block that throws an exception, a catch block which handles that exception, and then it's outputting the properties, name and message of the exception object. If I run that, we see the name of the exception, something went wrong, error, and the message, something went wrong, you should fix it. If I uncomment a bit of code in the finally block, we should see that this output occurs and we see finally always executes, regardless of the fact that we're throwing and catching an exception. Perfect.